Torah Life Ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Meese with Torah Life Ministries, and we are reading the Torah portion number 5, the 5th reading. We're reading Genesis 23:1 to 25:18, and we're going through the Old Covenant, the original scriptures, the Torah, the first 5 books of the scriptures. And I got a question this week. Somebody asked me, is all you teach out of the original covenant or the Old Testament? Don't you ever teach anything out of the renewed covenant or the New Testament? Folks, I teach out of the Bible, from every single book, from the beginning in Genesis all the way to the end in Revelation. The Torah is the guidelines and instructions, the foundation of all scripture. And all those people in the renewed covenant, even Yeshua himself, taught right out of the Torah and the scriptures as well. I teach everything. I teach out of all of it. So yes, there's your answer. I do teach out of all of it. We are reading here the foundation of all scripture. And we're going to start off this week with Genesis 23:1. And then we're going to go through to Genesis 25:18. Okay, first we look at Genesis 1. We're looking at Sarah and the life of Sarah. And we're looking exactly what's happening with Sarah. And it says here, Sarah lived to be 127 years old. So she lived to be 127 years old. Now, keep that in mind. Now, she had Isaac when she was 90 years old. So she lived to be 127 years old. And these were the years of Sarah's life. Sarah died in Kiryat Arba, also known as Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to mourn Sarah and wept for her. Then he got up from his dead one and said to the sons of Heth, I am a foreigner living as an alien among you, with you. Let me have a burial site with you, so that I can bury my dead wife. And the sons of Heth answered Abraham, listen to us. You are a prince of God amongst us. So choose from our tombs to bury your dead. Not one of us would refuse you his tomb for burying the dead. So basically, even though Abraham was a foreigner living in these lands, they still respected him, understanding this was a great man of wealth, and this was a prophet, our wonderful creator Yahweh, and this man was a special man. So even as a foreigner, the people that were living there respected him. Now, it was also way back then that they negotiated, and Abraham humbled himself and bowed himself before them to not to worship them, but to say, please, I'm humbling myself, and even though you think I'm up here, I'm not no better, different. I'm an alien in this land, a foreigner in this land. So then Abraham said, Abraham got up and bowed before the people of the land, the sons of Heth, and he spoke with them and said, if it's your desire to help me bury the dead, then listen to me. Ask Ephron, the son of Zahor, to give me the land of Machpelah, which he owns, the one at the end of his field. He should sell it to me in your presence at its full value, and then I'll have a burial site for my own. Now, Abraham knew that this was in the land of Canaan, and he knew that this land was promised to the Israelites. He knew this land was going to be the promised land. He knew this was going to be the land that the covenant that our Creator made was going to be here. He could have had land anywhere, but he wanted to bury Sarah in this land. And not only that, he wanted his descendants to be buried here too. So he says, if your desire to help me, this is it. I want the Ephraim of Zohar. I want that cave. I want that land in Machpelah. That's the land that I want. And so Ephraim the Hittite was sitting amongst the sons of Heth, and he gave Abraham his answer in the presence of all the sons. He says, in front of the ruling council and everything, he says, what is it? They negotiated, and Abraham says, I want to pay you. He says, no, what is the money between us? But it is worth 400 shekels of silver. And so Abraham pays him pretty much. So the field of Machpelah, of Ephron's field in Machpelah, was given to Abraham, and that's where Abraham buried Sarah. And it wasn't only Abraham buried Sarah there. Abraham later himself was buried there. Isaac, Jacob, and even Joseph was buried there. This was a special place, and this is amazing because today if you go there, it's actually a mosque that's on top of that cave. And I don't know if somebody could visit there today, if there's anyone could visit there or not, but I do know in the Muslim culture, the mosque has a high value, or there's something special about it. And this is probably the second or third most valuable mosque in all of Islam. And this mosque is, you got the Mecca where they go to make their pilgrims, and then you got the Temple Mount in Israel, and then this one right here in Mount Pila. And these were the three mosques, or the most important three mosques in the Muslim culture, from what I understand. And it's very interesting because that's the land where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob supposedly buried. And you can go there and visit, I believe, or one time you were able to. But that's it. So that's it. So Sarah, it's over. That was Sarah's life's end. But now she has mourning. She has Abraham who's mourning. But Abraham's righteous, and Abraham knows that Yah has a plan. And Yah said, descendants are going to come from you like you couldn't believe. This is going to be a big thing. And then you have Isaac who was mourning. And so Abraham and Isaac are mourning, and so that's what we got going on. And next thing you know, Abraham says, I'm fulfilling this. I don't know if it was Yahweh that gave it to Abraham or Abraham that went out to God, but one way or another, Abraham says, I am fulfilling this. So Abraham, after that, he took another wife, and he had concubines also. Now, a lot of people don't realize or want to admit that, but yes, Abraham had concubines. His father had more than one wife, and his brother certainly had more than one wife. So we got to look at the culture of that time, folks. It was about being fruitful and multiplying, and that was the main blessing that could be given. And Abraham was told that he would be so blessed that Creator told him that your descendants will be so numerous, nobody can even count all of them. They would be so blessed. And Abraham had to fulfill that. And now Sarah, who he only had one child with, it was fulfilled through Isaac, but still the descendants will spread out through all over. And it was through Abraham's seed, not Isaac's seed, that was going to create all of these numerous, massive amount of descendants, and Isaac being from the seed of Abraham. And then from Isaac's seed would come Jacob, and then the 12 tribes, and so on, and we know the wonderful story of the rest. But so Isaac was the chosen son. We need to remember that. He was a chosen son. He was the chosen son of Abraham. And we keep that in mind, because we're going to see later Ishmael, we're going to see what happened with that. But we got to remember Isaac, and remember what that covenant was that our wonderful Creator made with Abraham. But Abraham wasn't stopping. He was going. Here the man was over 100 years old, and he's making babies with his concubines and his wife that he takes in the future. But we're up to 24:1 of Genesis. Now, remember, I want everyone to remember. You need to remember this. If you don't understand the culture of what was going on back then and what our wonderful Creator allowed as being ordained as okay and did not call an abomination, it's very difficult to understand the words of Messiah and the words of the Apostle Paul and so on. It's understanding the culture at that time. Yes, Abraham had more than one wife, and he also had concubines, but it was a whole different thinking than the way people think today. So before you jump off to any other conclusions when you hear the rest of this, you have to understand that. And we'll continue reading here in 24:1 in Genesis. It says, by now Abraham was old, advanced in years, and our Creator had blessed Abraham in everything. So everything. So the greatest blessing you can have back then was in having descendants, having children, being fruitful and multiply. That was the blessing of the blessings. That was the greatest blessing you could have. And when it says he blessed him in everything, he meant everything. He didn't mean something. Somebody say everything. That's what he meant of everything. So it says, Abraham, who said to the servant who has served him the longest, who was in charge of all he owned, he said, put your hand under my thigh, because I want to make an oath, or I want you to make an oath to our wonderful Creator Yahweh. And he said, here's what that oath will be, that you will not, see, first of all, you put your hand under somebody else's thigh. That was the custom and culture of that time of the way they took an oath. Today, you got to go to a courtroom and you put your hand over the Bible and you raise your hand. Well, no matter what you're doing today, people's words mean very little, and the customs today mean very little because people don't keep their word today. Back then, when somebody made a covenant, they meant it and they kept it. And here is his servant that served him the longest, putting his hand under the thigh of Abraham and taking this oath. And the oath was that you will not, as Abraham instructed him, promise me you will not take a wife for my son Isaac from the Canaanites, from the heathen, from the non-believers, from the people that do not have the covenant in their line. No way do you take a wife from here, but go to the land of my kinsmen and find a wife for my son Isaac from my own kinsmen, from where they are. Find it from there. And the servant saying, well, what if I go there and she's not willing to come back with me? Can I just bring Isaac there? And another part of this oath was, no, you will not take Isaac back to the land. You will not take him there, because Abraham came from that land. And he knew that, number one, that our wonderful Creator had a special woman picked out. And he must have told Abraham, look, you go there and I will supply the woman to come back. You will clearly know who that woman is. But Abraham didn't want Isaac to go there, because Abraham left that. And Abraham left there. And when Abraham left, he knew that our wonderful Creator was speaking to him directly. But everyone else in that land had a different thinking. There were idols like you wouldn't believe. Abraham's family, his dad, and there were just idols everywhere. And Abraham didn't want Isaac to go back there and see that and be part of that. So he wanted to take that special woman from his own kinsmen, from his own family, that a wonderful Creator had picked for Isaac, and he would send his servant there with the plan, and then she would appear in front of him, and then he would get permission from the family, and then they will come back together, and then Isaac will marry her. That is what was revealed to Abraham. Abraham knew it. He believed it. But the servant says, well, what if she doesn't come? Well, Abraham said, look, it's going to happen, but just in case it don't, you're out of your oath. So the servant felt good with that, so they went. And that just shows you the faith of Abraham. He knew. He just knew. But it says, so they go on to continue. The servant was going there now, and the servant took, it says, we're up to Genesis 24:10. The servant took 10 of his master's camels and all kinds of gift from his master. And he got up and he went to the city of Nechor. So 10 of the camels. So to take 10 camels and the people to take care of the camels and all the gifts and the riches that he took as well. Look, folks, this was a dangerous place to be walking around and wandering around the 100 miles that it was to get from one place to another. I mean, this trip took months. This trip didn't take, wasn't a quick trip. So they wanted to be protected. They wanted to be well stocked up on supplies. So a whole bunch of people went, not just his servant. So it says here, so when the servant gets there, and you know what? They never name who the servant was. This is very interesting. They just keep saying the servant, but they never name who he was. A very significant thing, and we're going to, look, just remember that. They didn't name who he was. So it's very significant. Listen here, folks. The servant didn't have a name. It wasn't about him. He went out and he went to get a bridesmaid for the groom. That's what he did. So he followed the instructions of our Creator via using Abraham as the messenger to go out and find a bridesmaid for the groom. And that's what the servant did. And isn't that the job of our Messiah? To go out and get the bridesmaids for the groom for a wonderful feast that's about to happen and a wonderful wedding that's about to happen. There's a lot of similarities, folks, between this reunion between or this meeting between Isaac and Rachel, and also our Messiah today and us, and the coming wedding feast that's about to happen. A lot of significance, and it's really a beautiful thing. So it says towards evening, when the women go out to draw water, the servant he said he had come and kneeled down his camels outside the city wall, and he said and asked our wonderful Creator, he said, please let me succeed today and show grace to my master Abram. So he didn't want to be out there for weeks or months looking. He wanted right away to get confirmation that this woman would be there, and he pleaded with that. So he says, here I am standing at the spring as the daughters of the towns come out to draw water. I will say to one of the girls, please lower your jug so that I can drink. If she answers yes, drink, and I will water your camels as well. Then let her be the one you intend for your servant Isaac. This is how I will know that you have shown grace to my master. Grace to my master, we could also say that you were gracefully look upon and give him favor and kindness to show this to Abraham. So you didn't keep him waiting any longer than the months that he had to wait for this thing to happen. Remember, Isaac and Abraham were mourning the death of Sarah. So they weren't all partying and having fun. They were mourning this terrible thing that had happened. So it says before he even finished speaking, Rivkah, or Rachel, the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, and the wife of Nachor, Abram's brother, came out with her jug on her shoulder. The girl was very beautiful, a virgin, and never having sexual relations with any man. And she went down to the spring to fill her jug. Now, understand that she was about maybe 19 or 20 years old at that time, and she was a beautiful girl, 19 or 20 years old. And so he sees her coming down. It says she went down to the spring, filled her jug, and came up. And the servant ran to meet her and said, "Please give me a sip of water from your jug to drink." And she wrote, "Drink, my lord," she replied, and immediately lowered her jug onto the arm to let him drink. And when she was through letting him drink, she said, "I will also draw water for your camels until they have drank their fill." She quickly emptied her jug in the thorough and then ran again to the well to draw more water and kept drawing water for all the camels. And the man just gazed at her with amazement. He was just in silence, and he was waiting to find out if this trip was going to be successful or not, because he found the woman. He found the right woman, but now what he had to find out was she going to be willing to go or not? So it says, when the camels were done drinking, the man took out a gold nose ring weighing 1/5 of an ounce and 2 gold bracelets weighing 4 ounces and asked, "Whose daughter are you? Tell me, please. Is there room for in your father's house for us to spend the night?" And she answered, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, born to Nachor," adding, "We have plenty of straw and food and room for you to stay overnight." And the man bowed his head and prostrated himself before a wonderful Creator. So this man, just like his master Abraham, was very humbled, and he bowed and prostrated himself in thankfulness. And he said, "Blessed be our wonderful Creator, my master Abraham, who has not abandoned his faithful love for my master, because our Creator has guided me to the house of my master's kinsman." So the girl there, while he was thanking our wonderful Creator for all this, the girl ran back to her mother's house to go ahead and tell him what was happening in the house. So Rivkah had a brother named Laban. Now remember that name Laban, because we're going to see later more about that. Laban seemed to have been the spokesman of the family. And it says, when he saw the nose ring and the bracelets on his sister's wrist besides, and when he heard his sister Rivkah's report on what the man had said to her, he ran out to the spring and found the man standing there by the camels. "Come on," he said, "you who our Creator has blessed. Why are you standing outside when I have made room for you in the house and prepared a place for you and the camels?" So the man went inside, and while the camels were being unloaded and provided straw and food and water brought to them, the men washed their feet. So we see the servant and all his men washing their feet, which is a very common custom in those days. And this is how you welcome somebody in your house. You wash their feet, or you let them wash their feet, and you welcome them with a meal and food and so on. That was the custom of the day amongst the people that would welcome you in. Well, that didn't happen. We saw last reading with the people with Lot, where the city-town people, even though Lot was welcome to the angels, the city-town people weren't welcoming him in the same way. They didn't. So we get back to this week here, and we see this, but we don't know at this point, and there was no way at this point for the servant to know about Laban and who he was and what he was about, but we know later on from seeing exactly who he was, the way he dealt with Jacob. But here's the first time we see Laban, and it goes on to say, but when the meal was set before the servant, he said, "I won't eat until I say what I have to say." And Laban said, "Speak." He said, "I am Abraham's servant, and our Creator has greatly blessed my master so that he has grown wealthy. He has given me flocks and herds of silver and gold, male and female slaves, camels and donkeys." Now, besides the flocks and the animals, you look at male and female slaves. Again, folks, we have to remember the culture and the custom at that time. It was different than it was today. Not only was it customary at those times to have a slave, but our Creator allowed it. He allowed it. He allowed it to happen. He has a master plan, folks, and the master plan. So you're looking at Abraham, a man that had slaves, and he had concubines. I mean, if you tell him today, to the average world, somebody that doesn't believe in the scriptures and what the scriptures are about, that a man in the past had slaves and concubines and more than one wife, right away they're going to jump to conclusions saying this man isn't a holy man, this man's an animal and a pervert, and he needs to be thrown in jail. But we understand that, the scriptures are a story of history, and it's a true historical story, and that's the way things were at those times, and the fact that our Creator allowed it, showed us that they did what they were supposed to be doing at that time. Now, I don't know for sure, but I don't think the slaves were the same type of system that we understand today, the way the slaves were treated, the way, in more modern times with the way slaves were treated. I don't think it was the same slavery system back then as it was in more recent times. For very well, maybe it could, but I know a lot of the slaves were left over from the war, and a lot of the servants and slaves were one and the same. So it wasn't really for oppression that they had slaves. It wasn't because they looked down on certain people. It was more because this is the way it was. This was the spoils of war, was slaves. That's just the way it was at that time. So it says, Sarah, my master's wife, bore my master's son when she was old, and she gave him everything he has. My master made me take an oath, saying, you are not to choose a son from among the people, the women of Canaan, but go to where my kingdom are, in my father's house, and choose a wife. And I said, suppose she is not willing to go. And he answered me, or Abraham answered his servant, he says, in whose presence I live, a wonderful Creator will send his angel with you to make your trip successful. Now we think about this. Abram had already met with the angels. He already met with the angels because we saw recently what had happened in last week's reading. And so this was all revealed to Abraham, folks. There's a matter of faith. But when you see the angels appear in front of you and they tell you something, yes, you're scared. There's fear there, because that's what happens when you're in the presence of a true angel. There's fear. There's no spectacular thing and it felt great. No, there's fear. No matter how righteous you are, every single instance ever in the scriptures, when an angel appeared, there was fear attached to that. But when that angel speaks, you don't doubt his words when you understand who this is and when your heart's in the right place. So it was revealed all this was going to happen. So Abram reassures his servant that the trip will be successful. I'll make sure of the servant that he brings him back. Will you go and pick my wife for a son at your father's house? So the servant tells all this to the house, and he says, so today I came, and he explains, I came here and asked you whose daughters you were, and everything worked up fine. Everything was it. So now, if you people intend to show grace and truth to my master, tell me so I can turn. If not, I can turn elsewhere. Is this the one? Are you going to let Rivkah come back with me? And then in 50 it says, Laban and Bethuel. Bethuel was Abraham's brother, and then Laban's son, who was Abraham's nephew, who was most likely the spokesman of the house, said, since this comes from our wonderful Creator, we can't say anything to you either, bad or good. Well, folks, these people at the time didn't believe exclusively in one Creator or in Yahweh. They had many different gods. At least that's where they came from in their history. And when Abraham left them, that's where they were. They were idol worshippers. But now they're just saying, they see all the riches and everything else. Well, how could we argue? And it says, Rivkah is here in front of you. Take her and let her go. So again, he, the servant, prostrated himself and humbled himself and thanked himself, and he gave Rivkah, and he gave the mother, he gave them a whole bunch of jewelry and everything else. Then it goes on to say, the next day in the morning he was ready to go. He said, send me off to my master. But Laban says, no, don't leave so soon. See, Laban wanted him to hang around, because we know later the kind of guy Laban was, trying to make deals and so on. But the servant said, I have to get back. This trip took months, and I got to get back. We got to get on the road. So they left it up to Rivkah what she wanted to do. So they called Rivkah out and said, do you want to stay a little while, or do you want to leave immediately? And here's Rivkah, 20-year-old woman, 19, 21, something around there. And Rivkah says, I want to go right now. She knew. And she got on that camel and she went. And she went with her nurse and her servants, and they all went. And they went. She went to go meet Isaac. So it says here, we move down to Genesis 24:62. It says, meanwhile, Isaac one evening, after coming along the road from where he was, basically he was meditating and praying. It says when he went out walking in the field, as he looked up, he saw camels approaching, and it says that Rivkah took a look and looked upon him far away, and when she saw Isaac coming, she quickly dismounted from the camel, and she said to the servant, who is this man walking in the field to meet us? And when the servant replied, "It is my master," she took her veil and covered her face. So she covered her face now. Now, again, remember, we're going through the scriptures in order. We started in Genesis 1. We're going through all three of them. You need to understand the times, the culture, and the customs to understand why all these things were happening and everything else. Because today, all these things are looked upon, they wouldn't have been considered okay. But our Creator said these are okay, and I allowed them to be okay, and it was the culture of that time. So it says the servant told Isaac everything that happened, and Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent, and he became her husband, and she became his wife. Basically, they consummated the marriage, and then this comforted Isaac, and for the loss of his mother, now he had his wife. So we see the type of woman, Rebekah was, Rivkah was. She was a follower of our wonderful Creator. Now, what's amazing about this whole scripture is, in every single thing here, the people were led by Yahweh to do these things. Abraham was led by Yahweh to go and send the servant to that land. The servant was led by Yahweh to go and choose the person. The family of Abraham were led to let her go. And Rebekah was led to come. Everyone was led by Yahweh, and it's the way it's supposed to be. And then, and then it says, Isaac loved her, and that was it. Then we look at 25. So then we go to chapter 25, and in chapter 25, we look at this here. We look at Abraham took another wife whose name was Keturah. She bore him, and then she's going to bore him, more children. So there was one. I'll try to pronounce the name: Zimran, Yoshan, Midian, Yisbak, and Shutak. And so it goes into the line of all the children that were born and all the children that Abraham bore through yet another wife. So this, in recording, it was only his third wife, even though he had more concubines. But we don't know if he had more wives after that. And it says Abraham gave everything he owned to Isaac, but to the sons of the concubines he made grants with those still living and sent them off to the east, to the land of Kiddim, away from Isaac his son. Now, this is how long Abram lived, 175 years. And then Abram breathed his last breath, dying at ripe old age, an old man full of years. He was gathered to his people, and Isaac and Ishmael's son buried him in a cave of Methpelah in the field of Ephron, the son of Tezorah, in the Hittite the Merem, the field which Abram purchased from the sons of Hit. Abram was buried there with Sarah his wife. So we see, number one, we see Ishmael coming back into the picture, and we see Isaac and Ishmael together burying their father. And then we see after Abram died, it says our Creator blessed Isaac, his son. And then we see here in the next chapter, it starts getting into the genealogy of Ishmael, and it talks about all the sons of Ishmael and everything else, which, remember, in Genesis 17:20, I believe it was, when Ishmael's mom was, the Egyptian slave girl was speaking to our wonderful Creator was speaking to her, saying she will not forget him, Ishmael, either, and he will have 12 princes and nation come from him. Well, it goes into say Ishmael's descendants, and Ishmael's line, Ishmael gave birth. It says there was 12 children of Ishmael. And remember, in Genesis 17:20, it said 12 princes. And it says each prince, there were 12 sons. So there it goes. That matches up perfect. So this was our Creator telling, Hagar, that you will have a son, Ishmael. And Ishmael will have many descendants, and he will have many children, and 12 princes will come to him. Let's just turn back to Genesis 17:20 and look at that. In Genesis 17:20, but as for Ishmael, I have heard you, I have blessed him. I will make him fruitful and give him many descendants. He will father 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But I will establish my cousin with Isaac. Well, so here we go. So there he was. That was the princes right there, and it was confirmed. Again, it matches up perfectly in Scripture, folks. So Ishmael had his 12 sons, and it names his 12 sons. And then in the next Torah reading, which is Genesis 25:19 to 28:9, we're going to see more about Isaac and the line of Isaac and what happens from there. And we're going to see that. So that's it. So next week, 25:19 to 28:9. Read it now so you can start getting ready for it. And if you have any comments or questions, post them below the video. Each week here, Torah Life Ministries, we're going to be posting the videos. If you want to help me out, you can go to Facebook and also go to YouTube and like these videos. Go on Facebook and YouTube and just click like. If you have any comments or questions, post them below the videos. But by liking the videos will help a lot. And put your comments below there as well. I look forward to hearing from you. Have a great Shabbat next week. I'm really excited. I mean, it just keeps getting more exciting, the things that are about to happen and coming up. Until then, everybody, thank you for checking us out. This is Paul Neeson with this week's Torah Portia. Have a great day, a great Shabbat, and Shalom, Shalom.
Life ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.